Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and this is going to be episode 12 of What Did I Get This Week. So this one isn't going to be nearly as big as I thought it was going to be. I knew there was a lot of stuff coming out on the 2nd, but then there wasn't actually that much this week, so it ended up being a pretty standard amount of new books for these videos. And I actually only have stuff from 2 different publishers this time around, one of which is obviously Viz. I don't know if there's ever going to be one of these videos without something from them. Anyway, first up we've got Volume 7 of Kill Blue. So with this one we are now past the halfway point, and I still think it's weird this series is getting a physical release, but we still have no news at all on Witch Watch, but whatever. I'm enjoying the anime for this series. I think the OP and the ED are both really good, and the show itself is solid. I think the studio is very new. There's definitely like a lack of polish and consistency in places, but the overall look and aesthetic are a nice translation of the manga. It seems like they took a lot of inspiration, especially from the volume covers and the color pages, giving us a very bright, fun-looking show. So this volume is where we really start to get some hints towards some of the main mysteries and plot lines in the series, while still keeping up the fun and silly atmosphere. So yeah, solid stuff. Next up we've got Volume 21 of Chainsaw Man, and now that we know how long the series is, being as it just ended, I guess I can take back my comment from last time about how far behind the physical volumes are. Speaking of the end of Chainsaw Man, what did you guys think? I'll get into some spoilers here, so I'll have something up on the screen so that you know, but basically I thought the final chunk of chapters in part 2 were a disappointment. Just a lot of fighting and not much else, and then it was just kind of over. The ending itself really felt like Fujimoto had just kind of written himself into a corner or got bored or something like that and decided to call it quits. The ending basically undoes the whole story in a way. Although with part 2, it was starting to seem like Denji really didn't have much room to grow anyway. I had slowly been losing interest in the series throughout part 2, but yeah, the ending kind of solidified that for me, unfortunately. That is, until I watched the Reze arc movie, which I know is kind of old news at this point, but I just got around to seeing it, and it really reminded me that I did love the series a lot at one point, so it's kind of a bittersweet feeling. If I had to guess, I would just say that Chainsaw Man ran for way longer than Fujimoto intended, and he eventually just ran out of steam and decided to end things instead of still, dragging it out even more. It's disappointing for sure, but it's still a series that gave me plenty of good memories and fun conversations with friends, so definitely worth it in the end. And then moving over to a series that nobody I know has read, we've got Volume 20 of Elusive Samurai, and another beautiful cover, as well as inner cover, whatever you want to call that. It would be neat to get a Matsui art book one day, for this series especially, but I think the color pages from Assassination Classroom and Nogami Nero are also nice. One of the best things about Matsui as a mangaka, I think, are his use of references and visual symbolism or metaphors to really illustrate a point, or hammer home a punchline. This one obviously being the former, but yeah. Really great series. I'm excited for the 2nd season of the anime, which is coming pretty soon, and yeah. Next up is Volume 6 of Astro Royale, which is the final volume because the series was cancelled. I really like the colors on this cover, especially this like cityscape in the background. I think that looks really nice. And I think Wakui's colored illustrations are great in general. I really appreciate that 7 Seas gave us all of the color pages with their Tokyo Revengers release. But anyway, like I said, this series was unfortunately cancelled, hence the short 6-volume run. So I don't really have that much to say about it. This volume does include a bonus epilogue chapter that follows up on the characters that we got to know, and also shows some of the other characters that the story couldn't get to, so I think that's nice. So we've got the end of one series and the start of another. This is volume 1 of Shinobi Undercover. Despite what I just said, it's really just the English release that applies to. But yeah, this series is a lot of fun, I think. It has some great action and artwork with a lot of cute and wholesome moments as well. Seeing Yoraka here in color always kind of throws me. The screen tone that they use for his hair isn't like super dark, so I always imagined him with some sort of like chestnut brown or orange hair or something like that. Definitely not purple, but I can dig it. My favorite characters right now are probably Hibari, Suzume, and Mukudori, only one of whom is actually in this volume, but yeah, good characters, good cast all around. And with the current manga, we just wrapped up a big arc that was really solid, I thought, so definitely looking forward to where the story goes from here. And then we've got volume 22 of Sakamoto Days with another very solid cover from this series. Sometimes all it takes is a cool looking character with an interesting color palette. This volume is neat because we start delving into Shin and Sakamoto's past and looking at how they met. It also has the end of the Shin versus Tenkyu fight, which is cool timing given Tenkyu just made his return in the manga not that long ago. A lot of the fights in the current arc have steadily been wrapping up, so I'm expecting to turn our attention back to Sakamoto pretty soon for that main event fight. But yeah, really fun series, some of the best action of anything I've ever read. Definitely recommend it. And then we've got volume 7 of Bugle Call, and again, haven't started this series yet, but I was very intrigued by the cover here. Some sort of Paper Moon King type thing going on. More likely clones, but the face of this characters really reminded me of the face that Yasuo and Josuke saw when they were under attack from Tsurugi. I also really like the green and purple color combo, similar to the Sakamoto Days cover we just looked at actually. Yeah, can't go wrong. Continuing the purple trend, we've got volume 19 of Dan Da Dan. And the Dan Da Dan covers are kind of similar to Sakamoto Days, I think, where the layouts are pretty standard across the series, but some great character designs and fun colors make for some really standout looking volume covers. With this volume, we finally conclude the Cursed Trunk arc with the arrival of the mysterious savior, Count Saint Germain, a goodbye from an old friend, and some setup for the plot going forward. Super good volume and a great ending to one of the best arcs in the series. Next up is Ichi the Witch Volume 3, and I think it's interesting having the main villain on the cover of the third volume. It does make sense since this is Ichi and friends' first encounter with the World Hater magic. But yeah, super clean cover with the cool colors for World Hater and then like the dark background. Here's just a cool page while I talk about the current manga, which I think has been really interesting recently with Fujimine and the Magic Keepers. Expanding the villains beyond just magics themselves, I think, is a really neat idea and just kind of, makes sense for the world. And I really like the Magic Keepers and their kind of role in this society. They're kind of working in tandem with the witches, but also kind of opposed to them at all times. So I think that's really interesting how they kind of keep each other in balance. But yeah, Fujimine definitely shocked me. I really like her so far as a villain. And then for the last Viz pickup, we've got Volume 5 of the Vagabond Definitive Edition. So I was originally going to get Vagabond like years ago, but I guess I am glad now to have waited since we've got these fancy hardcover versions. They are really nice, but generally speaking, these giant volumes can be kind of cumbersome to try and actually read. They can be pretty heavy, especially if you're reading like Marvel omnibuses, because the type of paper they use, those are super heavy. But I also can't deny that reading in a larger print than your regular tankobon size is a better experience. So, other than that, not much to say. Everybody knows, or at least has heard, how great Vagabond is. So, yeah. And then moving on to our other publisher this time around, which is Kodama, we've got Volume 2 of Sun Can Rock. I thought these were going to be monthly like Baki, but it's looking like they're bi-monthly. Although they are 2-in-1s, so if you kind of do the math on that, we are technically getting 1 volume's worth of manga per month. But anyway, still a pretty speedy release schedule compared to most publishers, so definitely can't complain. And I've got plenty of other stuff to read in the meantime, so, not really in a rush for them to get this whole thing out there. And then you may have been able to guess what's next. It is our 2 Baki volumes for the month. I was actually doing some Googling the other day, and apparently Kodama announced back in April that they will in fact be continuing with Baki beyond the first part. So super excited for that. And according to Wikipedia, new Grappler Baki will begin releasing this November. So perfect birthday present just for me. But yeah, big fan of Baki. I definitely can't wait until we get some of the later parts in physical print. And then rounding things out with our CD pickups, we've got Oceanside and Adventure, both by Kikuchi Momoko. I'm diving into a new artist with these ones. I'm really getting into the summery vibes now, so these ones kind of just called out to me based on the covers, obviously. Apparently, she's also an actor, so I was curious about her filmography, and apparently she was in the Lucario movie, for anybody that watched that back in the day. I definitely saw it a few times as a kid on Cartoon Network, but then also in like 2021 or so, I actually went back and rewatched the first handful of Pokemon movies, like the first 10 or something like that, in Japanese, so I definitely heard her then, which is just kind of a interesting sort of little coincidence. I always really enjoy finding those small connections between your different interests. But yeah, definitely looking forward to giving these ones a listen. So yeah, less stuff than I originally thought for this episode, but still a decent round of pickups over the last 2 weeks. Next up will be my May Ami Ami order, which I just got the other day. And then I've got a couple Big Bad Toy Store hauls that we'll be able to do after that. But anyway, thanks as always for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see ya.